Today on LA Currents, the lack of affordable housing and homelessness is the new crisis, and Councilmember Curran Price is bridging that gap in his district. Next, he commands one of the largest police agencies in the U.S. We exchange views on police training and education with Sheriff Nueva. But first, it takes someone with unlimited compassion to give a second chance to a group of LA homeboys. We sit down with Father Greg Boyle. The Urban Dictionary defines the word homeboy as the epitome of friend, someone who has your back. Well, what began as a door-to-door campaign to get youth employment has now become Homeboy Industries. The founder of Homeboy Industries, Father Greg Boyle. So nice to have you here.
Thank you, Maria.
Wonderful news. The 2020 Conrad Hilton Humanitarian Award has been bequeathed to Homeboy Industries. It's $2.5 million, unrestricted funds. Is that a game changer for Homeboy?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're quite humbled by it, and it validates our 32 years of existence, and heartening given all the international pool of nonprofits that they picked us. So yeah, no, it's a game changer because it supports our programming, of course, in an unrestricted way, but allows us to think about transitional housing, permanent housing, moving beyond and meeting the needs that present themselves. The ultimate goal is Homeboy wants to be the front porch of the house that we all long to live in, a place of kinship and connection where there is no us and them. And I think that's a timely message in our country at the moment.
Over 3 decades ago, you actually were assigned to the poorest Catholic church in Los Angeles, and looking around, you saw a need for the youth in the area to have a reason to look forward to their future beyond the drama that you saw they were participating in. How did you put Homeboy together? And it wasn't Homeboy at the time, it was, Jobs for a Future. How did you see all that taking place? What were your energies and efforts, and how have things progressed?
I arrived in '86, so the first 2 years have really had other issues like immigration principally, and people were being deported, and so that was an issue for our community. But in '88, I buried my first young person killed because of the sadness, and 2 weeks ago, I buried my 236th,
Oh, no.
Not all from that community, but gang members I know because I run a large program. So we started a school, then we started a jobs program, and that was the decade of death, which was '88 to '98, when sometimes I was burying 8 kids in a 3-week period. It was horrific, and shootings morning, noon, and night. So it was a hard issue to just ignore and have mass on Sunday. So we kept responding to things, and we've backed our way into becoming now the largest gang intervention rehab reentry program on the planet.
A lot of it started with actual industry. You had the bakery and the tortillery. You were able to not just ask for jobs, you were able to offer jobs.
Yeah, we created jobs because we couldn't find enough felony-friendly people to hire gang members from the parish. And so after the unrest in '92, a movie producer saw an article about how our community didn't explode, and the reason I gave was because we had 60 strategically hired rival enemy gang members from the 8 gangs in the parish working, a maintenance crew, landscaping crew, that kind of thing. So he bought this bakery that was abandoned across the street from the school, and that was our first enterprise. But they were born because we couldn't find people willing to hire tattooed felons.
How do you decide how these initiatives should be rolled out and where they take their place in your priorities?
Yeah, I wish I could say there was a plan or a vision, but there was never that. So the business says we have 9 of those now, electronic recycling and silkscreen and a diner at the city hall, a restaurant at the airport. So these kinds of things have blossomed, as well as trying to deal with the fundamental essential healing of every gang member who comes to us. So therapy, tattoo removal, classes, recovery, 12-step programs. So we, respond to kind of what's right in front of us. So there's never kind of a plan. I wish there were. But we've always just sort of backed into things as we go, maybe we should do tattoo removal. When things present, we respond. And so that may not be any way to run an airline, but that's kind of how we operate. And so, and it's worked for us because new things present, new challenges. How, like homelessness right now is an issue among our population. And that never was before. Even when you got out of prison, you always had a place to live. And now couch surfing or sleeping on a bench or in your car. And we don't want that. So that's a kind of thing that was new now that wasn't true 10 years ago.
So how are we in regards to the issue of gangs and gang violence? As you mentioned, the 80s and the 90s were where a lot of our attention was focused because it was so volatile. Has that abated somewhat and then sadly replaced by these other social issues such as homelessness?
Yeah, well, I would say it certainly has abated. So in 1992, we had 1,000 gang-related homicides. Since then, that number's been cut in half and then cut in half even again. So most chiefs of police in the last 25 years would certainly tip their hat to Homeboy and their beneficial role in that reduction of gang violence. It's still out there, for sure. And, we work with not just previously gang involved, but recently previously incarcerated folks. So people are being released, and now even more in large numbers of 5,000 from the county jail and 8,000 from the California state prisons. So, but our model now is more about healing. In the old days, it was jobs. Nothing stops a bullet like a job. But now we know that unless somebody surrenders to just this brief period of essential healing, they're probably going to go back to prison. This really breaks that cycle and really addresses the recidivism rate, which has always been vexing in the state of California.
Where is everybody falling on the scope and scale of what's needed?
Yeah, when we started, gang members, 120,000 gang members, 5% were women, and now it's probably 3% are women. So it's been mainly a guy thing, but that's why we expanded our mission statement to include previously incarcerated, so that we would at least have women, some women. So we have 32% are women. But if we insisted, as we do with the guys, you have to have been a gang member. We wouldn't have any women. So, but they all have to be felons in order to be in our training program.
So how would you balance the basic human needs of shelter and food and that kind of thing, to the need of one-on-one relationships and compassion and knowing that you were cared for and loved? Where's that balance?
That's an excellent question. I mean, part of it is we pay them to do the work. We pay them to work on themselves. We don't want them to be strangers anymore. And again, this is the most traumatized population ever, hence they went to prison, and so they need to heal from what was done to them and also come to terms with what they've done. And then they're resilient, and the world will throw at them what it will, but this time they're not going to be toppled.
If all your prayers were answered, what would Homeboy Industries look like?
You go to the margins not to make a difference. You go to the margins so that the folks at the margins make you different. You'd always hope to be endowed, because then you wouldn't have to worry. It's the thing that keeps me awake at night. How are we going to keep everybody employed? And so I'd be able to sleep better if that ever happened. Yeah.
We can do that.
Oh, good.
We will all.
You personally can do this for me? I'm glad I came.
I don't want to let you down. But who knows?
This was worth the trip.
There you go. Maybe there is someone that is listening that would make me not be ashamed in front of you, Father. Well, it's been wonderful chatting with you, and I wish you a world of good, because you are in fact the epitome of good. You are the definition of a homeboy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sometimes you don't need an army. However, Council District 9 is joining forces to better serve the needs of their unsheltered community.
Today we are getting another look at the devastation that homelessness has caused our community. We have a real obligation to our community to solve this problem.
This location, which is historic in Los Angeles County, will now go back to one of its premier use, housing for people who need it. Casa de Rosas will open soon as the home for 37 formerly homeless single-parent vets with a kid.
In CD9, we are currently developing a new building called Florence Mills Apartments, and it is 74 units of newly constructed housing, and 19 of the apartments are set aside for homeless people.
We're expecting to build about 160 permanent supportive housing units for folks that have been formerly homeless in South LA.
We are currently designed and approved to have 127 units of these restricted affordable housing units.
Here at Vernon, we have 12 one-bedroom units and 9 studios. Just in CD9, we have right now 5 other projects going through entitlements with an additional, roughly 200 plus units.
We'll have more than 2,000 units of temporary and affordable housing coming online within the next 24 months here in CD9.
The magnitude of the problem, when they did their point-in-time count in January of 2020, was about 66,000 people are currently homeless. So the magnitude of the problem is enormous.
Unfortunately, we have the second highest concentration of homelessness in our city. Some 500 along the freeway here, the 10 freeway, more than 2,200 in facilities, and almost 2,600 that are unhoused. Almost 5,000 individuals who are experiencing homelessness. That number is just unacceptable. We have to do more, we have to do better, and we have to be more creative in making sure that we are coming up with the kinds of solutions that are meeting the needs of individuals who are experiencing homelessness.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
And so we are attempting to address the situation in several ways. We're providing emergency temporary housing, we're providing permanent supportive housing, and also we're providing affordable housing.
I'm so proud of the people in the city and the county who have 2 times in the recent past, chosen to basically contribute more of their own resources through Measure HHH 4 years ago, and then Measure H, which was a county measure 3.5 years ago. But this city, steps up. And so I really want to thank all the voters, and I really want to thank everybody for taking every incremental step that is necessary to build affordable housing and to support people in need of affordable housing, especially the homeless.
We're here at Slauson and Olive, Caltrans parking lot. We're envisioning getting 75 pallet shelters on this site. The pallet idea is that it's a self-contained housing unit It's about the size of a parking stall. As I said, up to bed 1, heating and air. It doesn't have a bathroom. There'll be a common bathroom area. This, I think, represents the kind of emergency pop-up shelter that's possible. And again, it's a part of our strategy. So we've got temporary pallet housing, we've got permanent supportive housing, we've got affordable housing, we'll have safe parking. We're providing a variety of options to address this issue in a comprehensive way.
This building was a vacant commercial building that was purchased back in, I want to say, 2016. And so it was a vacant commercial building that we demoed, and then we used the city's density bonus incentive program to build 100% affordable housing.
This project is specifically designed as affordable housing using public funds from the city, county, state, and federal government. And the way this helps us address homelessness is while the project itself does not specifically have any specifically designated homeless units, by providing affordable housing for low-income families in the community, we're able to prevent families from falling into homelessness and finding themselves in similar situation to a lot of our neighbors that are in the unfortunate circumstance of living in the street and needing supportive housing.
This isn't a shelter, this isn't bridge housing. The people living here are gonna sign a lease, a standard rental apartment lease. And they are also going to have house rules. So it's permanent housing. As the units turn over and become vacant again, other homeless families will have an opportunity to move in. So we're creating effectively a long-term housing infrastructure for the city. These units will be available to formerly homeless households for decades to come, for at least 55 years.
These units will be restricted for a minimum of 55 years, but as a company, Thomas Saffer and Associates makes a commitment to keep these housing units affordable to the households really indefinitely.
We're excited to be here at 68th and Avalon, the site of our first navigation center here in CD9. And it's important that there be a one-stop location. There'll be initially 160 beds, a medical facility operated by St. John, and an opportunity for individuals to receive services here. We think this can be a whole campus. Eventually we can build out the other side for an additional 200 beds, and so we'll have a capacity of almost 400 beds. In addition, there'll be a safe parking facility here as well.
What we've come to understand in our 30-plus years of providing housing is that roof over the head is not enough. That some people are afraid to succeed because they've had so many failures, and they actually sabotage their own success. And the services that we have are services they wish they had had when they were homeless with their kids. We will have a daycare center on site, so that for parents with those age kids who need that kind of support, they're right here. Substance abuse counseling with job readiness, even readiness at the high school diploma level, up through college, it is here. So the support system that they have means someone is there to help you keep moving forward.
These individuals deserve to be off the streets. They deserve a chance to survive.
We're working with Curran Price and CD9 because it's very clear that Curran Price really has a heart for the community, and more so he has a heart for the most vulnerable in the community.
When you're trying to do a project like this, there is nothing like having the strong support of your elected officials. Councilman Price had a vision because he understood from listening to his constituents.
We're just grateful to be able to, be in CD9 and, have the opportunity to house the residents here.
We at Solar Impact believe that housing is the first step of many to really enabling economic equality and economic opportunities in communities of color.
We look forward to encouraging them to say, okay, I got it. So now I need to make sure someone else can come here and receive the wraparound services that I receive. And we hope that there's going to be sufficient housing in the area affordable, that they can actually still take advantage of the services, the neighborhood and community they've come to know, and they can come back here as an alumni.
Los Angeles has faced many controversies this year, and it takes a certain set of skills to provide law enforcement services today. Let's chat with Sheriff Nueva. Founded in 1850, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department is literally the largest sheriff's department in the country, and we are joined today by its 33rd sheriff. Delighted to have you with us, Sheriff Alex Villanueva. Nice to have you here.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
There is an enormous amount of focus and attention on the behavior of law enforcement. I mean, it's intense and volatile, but at the same time, something that you have to handle and deal with. So what adjustments have you made recently within the LA Sheriff's Department to sort of manage all of this attention?
Well, we just have all of our personnel just aware of what they're doing at all times. And you hate to have people working with their head on a swivel, but there's things coming from every single direction. And we just have to be mindful in terms of the impact that our activities are with the community, making sure the deputies stay safe out there, doing the right thing, and we're constantly criticizing what we're doing, getting that feedback, making sure the folks out on the field understand the impact of what they're doing. So there has to be a continuous line of communication between the community and then the deputies serving the community, because in essence, my goal is that they're one and the same. Last year I did 29 town halls, and I went all over the county, but we did it physically in person, obviously pre-COVID-19, and we met with, I met with the leadership of the cities and the communities we were serving, and then I met with the community themselves in a town hall format, open, and took questions from the audience, and very meaningful exchange. And then from there, then I talked to the deputies on the shift and told them this is what the community is thinking about you. These are some of the concerns of the community, and gave them really real-time information about the impact and how they're perceived in the community. And that was very, very effective, very insightful. And a lot of the community really appreciate what the deputies are doing. They had concerns sometimes that the deputies didn't really think about too much, like school traffic safety around school zones, things like that. That's very high on the list of community members. And you think in some communities where they may be experiencing either gang violence or something like that, or maybe cannabis shops are up there high on the list, but number one a lot of times is just safety for their kids.
Transparency is something that is a priority for everyone, and I'm assuring that you're feeling that way as well. And one of the things that happened recently with an officer-involved shooting led to the whole idea of body cams. So how are those going to be incorporated into the daily usage of the deputy sheriffs that you oversee?
Well, I campaigned on it before I took office. That was one of my top priorities. My first week in office, we figured out how to get it faster, better, and cheaper, the standard. And I thought it was a no-brainer, but it was, oh my God, the red tape we had to slog through, that it took us up until just Tuesday for the board to finally release the funds and go through the entire purchasing process. So October 1st, the first 5 stations are gonna have them. But it's gonna take us 18 months to equip the entire 5,200 personnel that we have out there in the field in uniform. So it's a process that takes a while, because every deputy and security officer has to have 8 hours of training on how to use the camera. We give them the policy, they sign for the equipment, so they understand how it's expected to be used. And then we're going to see once they're up and running in the field come October. Hopefully, we don't want a tragedy to see what the effectiveness of it is, but it's going to be available, and it's just nice to have that impartial witness to say, this is from this perspective, this is what it shows.
How are your deputies feeling about the fact that these body cams are going to be available to them? You mentioned obviously other law enforcement agencies, but how are you, what are you hearing internal?
For the most part, everyone is excited and looking forward to them, because we're an agency that our value is based on our trust. We have to be able to testify truthfully in court. We prepare reports based on what we see, what we observe. We have to, in front of a jury, answer questions. And we're judged by how credible we are as witnesses, and when we enforce the law. And sometimes it's in very controversial circumstances, but politicians, they can say anything they want on TV and there's no repercussion. Same thing with activists. They can say whatever they want. The only people that are bound by law to say the facts just as they know them are us. And the facts in reality doesn't come at the pace that the 24/7 news media cycle or the social media cycle is measured in minutes. It doesn't happen at that pace. And they right away, oh my God, it's a conspiracy. You're hiding something because you're not being transparent. Say, no, we're doing our job. When we have the facts, then we're going to present them. But we don't get to cut corners just to satisfy your curiosity. That's not transparency.
Well, you bring up a good point. Controversial decisions are definitely part of any position of responsibility, especially one laden with, the authority. Are you surprised by the vitriol or the drama that surrounds some of the things that you say and do as sheriff?
Well, it's kind of disappointing that people somehow can say, oh, I'm lying, I must be lying. It's a favorite line. He's not telling the truth. And when I was a deputy, when I was a sergeant of the department, I spoke truth to power in the most oppressive environment possible, which is under the administration of Lee Bach and Paul Tanaka, who are both federal inmates as we speak. And they really knew how to destroy careers. And I didn't care because I came across corruption, cheating. I pointed it out, I put it in writing. I said, I'm not going to participate, and this is going to lead to the downfall of the organization. I was laughed at, ridiculed, isolated, pretty much sent to the gulag. But I realized it was more important to me, my credibility, my integrity, than to buy into a corrupt system, the good old boy crowd.
In terms of recruitment, you have approximately 630 retirees. Needless to say, with the pandemic, the academies are on pause. Recruitment might somewhat be on pause. Are you worried about being able to garner the talent you need to continue with community safety?
We expect that we're going to continue to hire the best and the brightest to come, and we're hiring locally, not out of state anymore. We want our local kids to grow up to become deputies serving their own communities. We're going to raise our minimum education level in January 1st to an associate's degree. And I think we're going to be the first large organization to do that. And so we're going to have a supply of very good candidates from now into the future.
Are you incorporating additional things into training once that happens in terms of sensitivity and de-escalation and all of those hot topic buttons that are...
All those hot topic buttons that politicians are jumping on the bandwagon to say, we are already doing those things. Implicit bias training. We have a lot of de-escalation training. We have a crisis intervention training, and a lot to do with, with dealing with the homeless, for example, with the mentally ill. We're constantly training. What kills us, though, is when there's a budget crisis, the first thing that gets sacrificed is training. And that's the thing what we need the most, and we need to make more of it. So we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul to see where we can get the training to happen, and let's see what happens.
In your term so far, you've been on board since 2018. What are you most proud of what you've been able to do?
I think the permanent ban on ICE is an important achievement. I got the board to actually follow suit and make it permanent for future sheriffs. And SB 54 allowed that, gave the local boards authority to do that, so that's a good move. I think the body cameras, those are two big campaign promises that I fulfilled. And hiring locally only. So we're well on our way to achieve all of the campaign promises I set out when I was campaigning for the office, because I want to make sure I did what I set out to do, which is to serve the community and make it safer for everyone. What's happened in the 18 months I've been in office, and I look at the last 5 sheriffs before me, I've lived their entire careers in office that goes back decades in 18 months. With all the crises that we've had to handle, day in, day out, there's a new crisis. And social media, 24-hour news cycle, the expectations keep climbing higher and higher, and we just have to let people know that gravity still rules, there's a process that has to take place, there's no conspiracies. When we have the facts out, we're going to deliver them to the public so they understand we're the good guys, we're doing the right thing for the right reasons.